It is my great pleasure. Oops. Yes, it's taking time to adjust to this new hybrid nature. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to this very important side event on fast-tracking the implementation of One Health approaches for biodiversity and health. My name is Jihyun Lee, and I'm the new director of the Science, Society and Sustainable Future Division at the CBD Secretariat. And now at this meeting in Geneva, I'm servicing the meeting of SBSTTA as a SBSTTA secretary. This side event is jointly being convened by the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety and Consumer Protection, together with the CBD Secretariat and many other partners of the multi-partner trust fund on biodiversity on health, for health and pandemic prevention, namely UNEP, UNDP, World Health Organization, World Organization for Animal Health, IUCN, and Eco Health Alliance. I'm very happy that actually I've been here only for the rejoining CBD only for 1 week. And I used to work for Marine Program 12 years before I left CBD, and I'm now rejoining. So I'm very happy that I'm my first side event that I'm servicing is this very important issue. So I'm here to learn from you and to listen to you. So on behalf of these very valuable partners, I'm delighted that so many of you have joined us here today. And in the coming weeks in Geneva, we all have important discussion to help us advance our common vision of living in harmony with nature. As you'd agree, agenda item 9 on biodiversity and health has become one of the most critical items on the agenda of SBSTTA 24, especially since the emergence of the global pandemics. At this event, our aim is to contribute to ongoing discussion on the linkages between biodiversity and health. In particular, we are here with an aspiration to fast-track the implementation of biodiversity-inclusive One Health approaches, as highlighted in COP decisions 12/21, 13/6, and 14/4. In light of this aspiration, the establishment of multi-partner trust fund on nature for health is a great step and great news indeed. And that's why it was highlighted by SBSTTA chair on his opening. It is a great step forward that we all welcome with our sincere appreciation. And this fund will help us identify and apply innovative solutions to accelerate our implementation of One Health approaches. On behalf of the partners of this fund, I express our sincere appreciation to the government of Germany for their initial pledges of 50 million euro to fund this initiative and co-hosting this side event. So And of course, we encourage other countries and parties to join this great initiative. With this, I now invite Dr. Anne Larigoderi, Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. She will set the scene of this side event by introducing One Health as a nexus approach for addressing pandemic risk.
Thank you so much for the introduction, dear colleagues. It's so nice to see real people. I cannot say enough how happy I am to be at this meeting and to relate to each one of you in person. So it's really a privilege and an honor to be speaking on the occasion of this event, and in particular in the context of these two really significant developments. One of them is the discussion this week and later at COP15 of an ambitious global action plan for biodiversity and health. and also in the context of this very significant announcement by the government of Germany on this multi-partner trust fund for biodiversity and health, with this really important focus on pandemic prevention. So as you will recall, I hope, back in October 2020, IBES released a workshop report on the links between biodiversity and pandemics. I emphasize that this was a workshop report, not an assessment, and it forms a contribution to ongoing assessment, and I will mention that a little bit later. But first, I'd like to share a couple of highlights from that workshop report on biodiversity and pandemic. First, that report really replaced pandemics and the origin, the emergence of diseases within their ecological context, in addition to the medical context, which is usually when we talk about emerging diseases, once they have left their environment where they belong and have reached us humans in the form of diseases. So the report explains that pandemics emerge from microbes that are found in nature, mostly on animals, and mostly in high biodiversity regions, typically in tropical regions. It also explains how pathogens spill over from infected animals into people when people are put in contact with those infected animals, and typically as a result of human-driven activities. Secondly, the report highlights the direct drivers of the emergence of these diseases. They include land use change, big projects such as deforestation, for example, for cattle farming, for agricultural expansion, for urbanization, but also land use change for mining or for logging. That's an important direct driver. Another important one is the wildlife trade, which provides intimate contacts between wildlife, livestock, and humans. Thirdly, there are, of course, always underlying drivers or underlying causes for these emergencies. And of course, they have to do with what people do, and in particular with the choices of consumers. So consumption patterns are really one of the main causes of all of this, such as the demand for pet, for food, for medicine, for fur, for example, which will drive wildlife trade, but also for meat, which can drive deforestation, meat or other agricultural products as well. And fourth, and finally, the report also highlights some options for action. And the main conclusion of the report is that there could be a new way to deal with pandemics based on the prevention of the emergence of these diseases as a complement, of course, to the medical approach, which obviously needs to be re-emphasized and is very key, of course. But there could be another way, which is an ecological approach as well, to complement this medical approach to emerging diseases. And to do this, there is an array of activities to be undertaken. More research, particularly on microbial diversity in wildlife, more investment into monitoring and mapping disease emergence, particularly in hotspots, for example, to avoid going into major development project in these hotspot areas. We know how to measure that, and building institutional bridges. And I believe that this is at the heart of our topic today, among communities which traditionally have really not been in the habit of collaborating with each other. So those are the medical community, the veterinarian community, together with the forestry community or the conservation community. So it's really important to be better equipped to work together under what is referred as this very key One Health approach. And then just very quickly then, IBES is now working on a new assessment to be released in 2024. We refer to it as a nexus assessment. It's going to look at the linkages among biodiversity, water, food, and health, and in particular look at options to reduce future pandemic risk while at the same time protecting biodiversity, mitigating against climate change, and enhancing food security. So we have 170 experts at work that are going to meet next May for the first time, and then watch this space, and we will be reporting on you shortly on what they have come up in terms of options for actions. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the event very much.
Thank you, Anne, for your excellent presentation. And I really also enjoyed listening to you about the summary of the key points of the workshop. And we hope that we can continue to work on this, and then that will become also the basis for our collaboration. So now I have a great pleasure to introduce Dr. Maria Nira, Director of the Department of Environment, Climate Change and Health at the World Health Organization. She will share her perspectives on how we can leverage the health argument for climate and biodiversity action.
Thank you so much. And it's such a pleasure to be here with people in 3Ds. I mean, it's amazing to have again this number of people attending a meeting and see such a commitment and interest in coming back to this conference center. I have been missing this very much, and I think it's very good for mental health as well. I hope you all agree. As representative of WHO, you know, for us, health goes beyond physical, so this is very important for our mental health as well. So very happy to see you all. And those masks, the ones that were distributed, we all look like a duck. Did you realize that? But anyway, it's still fun because we know that hopefully, you know, a new face is coming in. Thank you so much, policymakers, participants, those here and those online as well. A pleasure to be with you. You don't need to convince WHO about the importance of biodiversity, climate change, ecosystem, and health. We are among the most converted one, and on a very selfish way, because there is no way to have health, human health, without the protection of nature, without preserving what we have around us, which is the one that represents our source of health. Water, access to water, food, shelter, and the air we breathe. Without those four pillars, I don't see how we can have health. And thank you very much for describing so well those interlinkages. You refer to the medical approach, you know. As a medical doctor myself, we were trained like that. We were trained on focusing on treating people. But if you do public health, you realize that treating people is never enough. That's why the health community has created that slogan, which is one that was beautiful: prevention is better than cure. Somehow in our road, in the development of the medical community, we forgot a little bit of that. And now with this connection, the One Health approach is yet an opportunity to remind us the importance of primary prevention, the importance of prevention is better than cure. I think we don't need to discuss much. I think the consensus is very well established that the COVID-19 pandemic remind us once again of the importance of looking at what is conditioning our health, and what is conditioning our health are those ecosystems, are the biodiversity, are the causes of climate change. If we mitigate the causes of climate change, if we stop the loss of biodiversity, that will be the best defense vis-a-vis another potential pandemic. I'm not saying that we will stop them, but we will definitely reduce dramatically our vulnerability, and we will put barriers. Actually, I will call it the green barriers to protect human health. That's what WHO at the beginning of the pandemic, we did already something that we call it a manifesto for a healthy and green recovery. And we were given prescriptions, 6 prescriptions that we thought that will be good for human health, for a sustainable development, for the economy, for a fair transition as well to a different future. Among those first prescriptions, the first one was stop destroying nature, stop destroying biodiversity. And those were health prescriptions. So as a medical community, as a health professionals, we recognize that the first prescription to have our population less vulnerable to next pandemics or crisis, or even reducing the risk that we have now by losing biodiversity, but having pollution in the water, in the air we breathe, in the food we eat, will be to stop destroying nature, reconcile our society with nature in the name of health. And I think this is something that now on this green and healthy recovery, we will insist very much, because those investments that we need to do now to recover as a society, they need to go into that direction. Otherwise, we will put ourselves at risk again, and therefore we will destroy the economy as well. WHO has been working on this for many years. And I remember when we did the first report on biodiversity and health, that was very useful for our health professional community, because we used that to communicate, to educate many people, because for some people, they didn't see that connection maybe on a very clear way, on a very strong, establishing the strong linkages between that. Now, after this report, I think we are all converted and we are all part of this community, and we are convinced that, again, without biodiversity, we will not be able to stop all these crises that we are facing at the moment. Many things that we have been doing since then, but let me focus on 5 very, very quickly. One is the fact that we have this community of One Health. We have been working on that for many years, but now we have a common definition of One Health. I know that this cannot be classified as a big achievement, but it's very important. Now you have all of these agencies with a common understanding of the importance of One Health, environmental, human, and animal, and understanding that if one gets destroyed or unbalanced, the others will be unbalanced as well. And this is something that the medical community learned very easily. If you give a drug to a patient, you know that you might treat one symptom, but maybe you will cause some disturbances on the rest of the body. So this harmony, this balance needs to be ensured as well with the biodiversity in the ecosystems. We have now an expert working group on biodiversity, climate, One Health, and nature-based solutions, which make us very proud of that, because we are convinced that with that, we can push in the right direction very quickly. The recent expansion to the tripartite agreement and having our friends from UNEP, which is kind of by default, I think it should be something not even negotiable, because this is an important part of that. And then you all are aware of the IPCC report, the health chapter on the IPCC, how important for us. We went to COP26 as WHO, putting on the table the health argument for climate action, recognizing that we cannot go only for negative language to our people, because they are afraid, I don't think they can cope with more bad news. So we need to put it in positive. If you tackle the causes of climate change, the health benefits will be enormous. If you stop destroying biodiversity, the health benefits will be enormous. So we are using a positive narrative, the positive arguments, because we are convinced that using the health argument, we can all motivate more our society to do more on understanding more about climate change, about biodiversity, and about ecosystems in general. And then I am leaving for the last one, a fantastic achievement, which is this a title that I love, Nature for Health. I love it. I don't know who was the genius. I mean, it's fantastic. Nature for Health. It describes everything. We need nature for health. And if not, we will be all on trouble. So thank you very much for this multi-partner trust fund. by the government of Germany. Thank you very much for this leadership, the International Climate Initiative. Very happy to see again countries taking a leadership, pushing for this, and WHO is extremely happy to be part of this with other 7 organizations and going for a fast track. No time now to this is an historical moment. It's not just the pandemic risk. Now we have other big issues as well, and most of those issues are probably related as well to the fact that we are messing with the ecosystems and the basic resources we all need, energy, water, food. I think we need to be very conscious of that. So more positive and more on the protection of biodiversity and nature we advance, the better it will be as well for the conflict resolution and peace and a more humanitarian approach. The last thing is that this year, 7th of April, is the World Health Day, as every year. And this year will be dedicated to a slogan that I'm sure you will like it as well, our planet, our health. So I think that captures how much we are committed to that and how much the health community is engaged to move this agenda fast, strategic, and for the benefit of all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. It is indeed very different just from listening to you from YouTube and in person in 3 dimension. I could feel your passion and it's very nice. And I also thank you for really setting the 5 strong pillars for our next step for our collaboration. So yeah, I believe your message can really certainly inform our delegates in their deliberation on this issue. So as was highlighted during these 2 amazing speeches by 2 speakers, by implementing One Health approaches, we can achieve many co-benefits for the health of people and the health of the planet. And today we have 2 exciting roundtables that will focus on concrete solutions, new ideas, and possible challenges and opportunities to fast-track One Health approaches. So now I would like to introduce Ms. Marina von Weisenberg, Senior Minister Advisor of the Ministry of the Environment of Finland, who will lead us through a first panel where we will hear from representatives from parties and indigenous peoples and local communities. Maria, the floor is yours.
Oh, I take that one. Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Fantastic to see you all here. I can't say any more that Dr. Anne and Maria said about finally we are here together. And thank you, Ji-Jun, for also presenting me. We with Helena will have the should we say the enjoy and the challenge to also chair the contact group today, this evening, the 2 ones on the health and biodiversity. So I already now would like to say we need your help. I think this is an extremely important action plan that has to be adopted. And therefore, I think it's my great pleasure to also now have the exciting best practices shared here around the table today on the mainstreaming of One Health approaches and maybe identify gaps and challenges that we have and share in our countries. And there are now 4 people which I want to present. First of all, Mapasto Kalemba from Malawi. And then Helena Jeffrey Brown here to my left, my co-chair for the contact group today, and then Dr. Ji-Jun Park. And then I would like to go in order, and of course this One Health approach is of course known to many of you already, and I'm also very, very happy to see that the UNEA made the decision on that, including on the nature-based solutions. So we have the definitions, which was also approved by UNEA, and of course thanks to the work done on this approach. And also this is the reason that we would like to see how we can go in a fast track One Health that fully embedded in the environmental dimensions. And I know many countries already is doing this and showing a strong commitment. And I just want to say that in one way, we are coming also from my country. I'm from Finland, to an end in one way, because we had an uptake group in Finland on biodiversity and health about 6-7 years ago. And that recommendation was to have the global plan of action, which we are going to have now decided here. So from these uptake groups, there are results, and that's also fantastic to see that we have very huge commitments around this in this room and also in this convention. So now, if I could please give the floor now to Mabasto Kalemba from Malawi to take the floor and share her experiences, please.
Thank you very much for inviting me and in the capacity to represent my country on this discussion. I know that I was invited last minute, mostly because Malawi was representing the African group at UNEA, where the African group submitted a resolution on biodiversity and health, which was adopted. And maybe just why did the African group feel that it's important for the resolution to be submitted and adopted at UNEA? Obviously, it's because of the pandemic that we are facing, which revealed a lot of vulnerabilities, mostly for most of the countries in Africa, basing on the weak health infrastructure that is in most of the countries. So we felt that there will be need for greater international and political support on issues of biodiversity and health. And we felt it was important to push that resolution at that level. But also there is need for enhanced cooperation, as well as support for member states in issues of surveillance, health surveillance, and every important capacity to ensure that issues of biodiversity and health are well tackled at that level. So this was the reason why the African group felt that it was very important to have that political and international support for these issues. And we already know that there is work that is happening at the CBD, and it wasn't meant to be a duplication, but more like to ensure that this issue is handled at different levels to highlight its importance in terms of the political and international forums. So we have seen that with the resolution that was adopted, as well as the action plan at the moment, there are a lot of linkages. It's well supportive of what is happening at the two forums. But there are two main areas maybe that I would like to highlight in terms of what is important for us. The first is that the discussion is progressing and advancing at the international level, but we want to see the same happening at national levels, where you have the health ministries as well as the environment and other ministries working together in this regard, because this is something that we would like to see, that there are domestic measures that apply for the precautionary approach to ensure that we even have policy, we have action plans even at domestic level. And we are so happy to see that there is support that already was launched in that regard at the UNEA. The second area is that of the mainstreaming. When we are mainstreaming biodiversity into health, I've seen that we have to look at the ecosystem level, the species level, but also the genetic level. And with regards to the genetic level, we are talking about issues of sharing of pathogens to produce vaccines, sequence information, and the like. And maybe in the resolution, this is one of the areas where we also considered issues of benefit sharing. And in countries like, for example, in Malawi, we are already working with the health sector on benefit sharing because there are studies on antimicrobial resistance that are happening, and there are already those actions that are happening at that level. So in a nutshell, maybe this is what I can share, and we are hopeful that whatever we are discussing here will be advanced and will strengthen the global action plan to include these issues that are important in terms of capacity for surveillance, research on biodiversity and health, resource mobilization and capacity, even to ensure that these issues are not just happening at the global level, but we have actions, measures that should enable this to be mainstreamed where it matters and where the spillages are happening at the ground. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Marta, and thank you for your leadership and also for, in fact, replying to the questions. Now I give the floor then to Helena Jeffrey Brown. And in fact, my question to her is about the success for the criteria of the One Health. And could you share any thoughts about the concepts of wellness and tell us about the dimensions that adds to health from your perspective, please?
Thank you, Marino. Thank you for having me here. So in my country, my ministry, the name of it is actually the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and the Environment. So the wellness part is that link that has allowed us to mainstream to the health sector. And it's that concept of wellness that echoes the definition of health beyond the absence of disease and illustrates the One Health approach, where we talk about the interdependence of the health of humans, animals, and ecosystems. And it can be applied broadly and beyond the prevention of zoonotic diseases to encompass dimensions of mental health and disease prevention through healthier lifestyles, among others. So we worked with our health sector. Yes, they're very aware of the importance of preventative measures such as improved lifestyles and quality of life, but were they really aware of the effects of having a healthy environment or immersing oneself in a healthy environment, the effect of that on the health of one, the mental health of one, the spiritual health of one, the well-being? Were they really aware of it? Well, we have shown them by demonstration, just by being within the same ministry and exposing them in a variety of ways to the work that we're doing in the environmental sector. Is not only we, the government agencies, but also our local NGOs, such as the Environmental Awareness Group, our local communities who are working hard to restore our ecosystems so that they're strong and they're healthy and they provide a refuge for people to come to. And now it was seen that this actually came to the forefront during COVID, when we were all locked away and then we were allowed out only for exercise. We found people flocking to our forest reserves that were maintained by our communities, such as the Wallens Nature Reserve. We found people flocking to our protected areas that are being worked on by so many NGOs and local communities, because we want to know, why are you coming? Why are you coming all the time? Yes, we know you need exercise, but why are you really coming? So we conducted a survey to find out what people thought. Well, why is it, are you coming back? And they just said simply, well, we feel good. So we heard that, and what we interpreted that to mean was, could it be that immersion in nature, immersion in the sounds of nature, immersion in the feel of nature, immersion to the smell of nature, that complete immersion, could it be that that had an effect, not only say on the health, but the state of mind, the mental health state, the spiritual state, which, as we know, is the whole approach to health now. It's not just absence of disease, it's the full, well-rounded quality of life. Is it better now? Our local communities have been well aware of this for years, and they've been, this one particular community that's acquired land so that they can work on ecosystem restoration, so that people have a place to enjoy, because they've seen, hey, if we don't restore our environment, we don't work hard to make sure our ecosystems are healthy, then the health of the people are affected. It's there. And I just want to point out, I'm from a small and developing state, and we are very well connected with nature. And it was really hard when we're locked inside, away from our beaches, away from our forests, to thrive. And we didn't realize that until it was taken away from us. And then now, so then there's now a full-on approach to say, okay, this is not working. We need to figure out a way to make sure that we are respecting our environment, that we are finding ways to conserve it, we're finding a way to use it sustainably, find a way to restore our ecosystems, working hard so that we are sure that nature is there for us to maintain our health, because we just simply wanted to be immersed in nature once again. And it's something that's not tangible, but the effect is very tangible in how we are and how we stand in our health status down the road. So I would just like to just come to an end by just quoting a statement from our COP president's opening statement, where they said, biodiversity is essential for life. And I would like to add that our healthy, robust ecosystems are important for supporting the health of humans. And therefore, One Health approach is a way forward in maintaining our life, our health, our happiness, our livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Helena. And now we have the intervention or the thoughts by the IFB and with respect to traditional knowledge and medicine. And we have Yesenia Hernandez from the IFB. With respect to traditional knowledge and medicine, could you please share with your own One Health on how you see this to be the basis for the life and health, please? You can go up here, thanks.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Sorry, okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you. Sorry. Thank you very much to all of you. Happy to see you too after 2 very difficult years and days too, and we have more days. Okay, I'm here on behalf of International Indigenous Forum on Biodiversity, and the forum sends warm greetings to all of you. And we will share some thoughts about reflections that we made as a group regarding One Health approach. Really, One Health approach, maybe it's a new concept, but we as indigenous peoples and local communities having worked by millennia with this way of thinking. We see all the human beings, our Mother Earth health has our health, our life, and our survive. And indigenous peoples, because of that, we take care of the Mother Earth and our brothers and sisters, animals, plants. And after this, unfortunately, season of COVID-19, that COVID-19 lets us to understand the importance of to take care of the environment, our Mother Earth, and if we are working on that, we are taking care of our health. We hope to learn the lesson. We hope that all the humans learn to listen, and we start to work together and to what all the evidence shows, like a best pandemic report and many documents and data. For example, in the areas with the high levels of pollution, we had the worst scenarios in COVID-19. We must to take care of this. Zoonosis is just the tip of the iceberg of all the health issues that are related with nature. And for Mother Earth, all is it's integral, it's holistic, and for us too. And the analysis of regarding the documents that CDB were prepared, we consider some relevant things. We are excited, happy to know about the issues such as the challenge of urbanization, in which that is problematic to the health, and urbanization is also problematic to us, in our territories, as you as mentioned. Also the mention of medicine plants, it's important, the medicine plants and the medicine animals to contact also the human health in the various modalities mentioned. It's another crucial item. And analysis of the sociocultural aspects of health is also important and necessary, because a single One Health approach will be understood in different ways, in different places, in different cultures at the national and local level. And we are also glad to see the biocultural dimension of health. It's important to know that and to maintain this, to retain this. And prevention through the resilience of socio-ecological systems is another thing to highlight, because nature and people are interlinked, and we need to see this scene. We invite you to continue with the openness towards other visions of health and other ways of thinking, other knowledge systems, and to have an effective participatory approach and enable the environment to work with that. And identification and evaluation of policies is other important thing. And for all the principles and all the activities, we as International Indigenous Forum, we think that it's important to have sociocultural indicators to take in account this. And also for education and capacity building, and in a very sensitive way for us. And we also, we want to work together, to work jointly, but we need to take in account the importance of free, prior, and informed consent when we are working with traditional medicine. And also the sharing of benefits, it's another thing, because we as indigenous, we love to share, to help the people, the planet, but it's a justice thing that we need to take in account, that maybe if we can have benefits of all the things that we give to the human, the medicine, plants, etc. But if this can help to us to improve our lives, it's welcome. And it's a list of a minimum of respect for all our contribution. And finally, I will finish talking about the investing in One Health is in the one hand of the Mother Earth. It's also working on the protection of our well-being in health through the production of healthy food, healthy, clean air, spiritual well-being, and it's all integrated. Aho, thank you very much.
Thank you, Yesenia. Very good points also on this benefit sharing aspect. Okay, finally, in this panel, we will have now Dr. Yi-Young Park and hear from how Korea responded to this health crisis, in particular to the Korean Green New Deal and the wildlife disease management. And in addition, we know that the health has a much broader definition beyond the absence of diseases. The floor is yours, Dr. Park, please.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. Very nice to meet you. I'm Jin-young Park. I'm working at the National Institute of Environmental. I'm sorry, I have just moved my institute. National Institute of Biological Resources. Yeah. And also, I'm very nervous to talk without mask. Last 2 years, I never had an experience in front of many people. Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank our host for inviting us to this meaningful event, as well as all the participants who have joined here. This is a very meaningful event, as the topic of biodiversity and health is an important issue to the CBD and also emerging issue in the wider international communities. The world has never experienced anything like the COVID-19 pandemic before. And naturally, there has been a growing interest in the One Health approach, which puts emphasis on the closer interconnectivity between ecosystems, people, and wider environment. Korea has also implemented a number of policies in pursuit of such an approach. My view is that there are still a lot more to discuss on the topic of One Health, and for that engagement and commitment of national and international stakeholders is essential. Today, we would like to introduce to you two strategies that are recently developed in Korea, namely the Korean Green New Deal and the Master Plan on Wildlife Disease Management. These two plans share many differences in the purpose and the contents. However, what they have in common is that the implementation of the plans can contribute to tackling the social issues such as climate change and zoonotic disease by increasing investment for ecosystems and expanding infrastructure and network to manage wildlife disease. And that therefore very meaningful. For the detailed information on the strategic plan, I would like to invite my colleague, Mr. Chang Gang. He is working at the Nature and Ecology Policy Division of Ministry of Environment. Thank you.
Okay, nice to meet you. Thank you, Dr. Park. Good afternoon. I will briefly introduce to you the Korean Green New Deal and the master plan on the wildlife disease management. First, the Green New Deal. The Korean government has announced the plan in July 2020 and updated it in July 2021 to overcome and build back from the damages caused by the pandemic. The Korean Green New Deal covers 8 sectors, namely electric power industries, transportation, construction, investment for carbon sequestration, green manufacturing processes, ecosystem protection, securing water infrastructure, green finance and R&D, and fair and equal transition. In particular, the updated Green New Deal aims to further increase investment on carbon sinks. This includes investment on reinforcing the carbon sequestration ability of forests, increasing plant diversity in green spaces in city and industrial complexes, creating marine afforestation, scientific assessment on carbon sinks, and R&D big data on forest reserves. Sorry. The overall goal of the Korean Green New Deal is to achieve Korea's carbon neutrality and to increase the adaptation ability against climate change. But investments on the nature and ecosystems are expected to bring other positive impacts as well. Restoration of degraded green spaces, increasing forests in cities and near schools, and transforming empty lands in cities and industrial complexes into green spaces not only improves the water and air quality and protect ecosystems, but also make people healthier physically and mentally. This can be a nature-based solution to various social issues by restoring ecosystem service. This section of the Green New Deal is smaller in scale than other sections on such as renewable energy, electric cars, and green industry. But it is expected to keep growing as more people seek leisure in the nature, such as camping and hiking to release stress from the pandemic. Okay, I will now move on to the master plan on wildlife disease management. This is a 5-year official plan based on the Wildlife Protection and Management Act in Korea and covers development and revision of infrastructure and policies for wildlife disease management, surveys and research, and domestic and international cooperation. This master plan was built on the recognition that wildlife disease could threaten ecosystems and people's health. The overall goal of the second master plan is to improve healthy life and ecosystem where people and wildlife can coexist in a symbiotic way, which is on basis of One Health. Under this goal, the government is strengthening research on properties of wildlife disease and the monitoring system, reinforcing zoo management to prevent spreading of zoonotic disease and prohibiting exhibition of wildlife in facilities that are not registered or approved. The Ministry of Environment established the National Wildlife Disease Control Center in September 2020 to build a wildlife disease response system and developed a comprehensive and systematic plan, including enhancing the whole process of importing, quarantine, and distribution. This is R&D and training for professionals. We expected that the implementation of this master plan will greatly contribute to healthy life and ecosystem for everyone. The Ministry of Environment, together with the Korea Forest Service and local governments, continue to integrate into our government plans the philosophy of oneness for healthy life for people and wildlife in Korea. With that, I will finish my intervention. Thank you for listening.
Thank you all, the panelists, for excellent presentations. First of all, I have to say, I feel like healthy parks, healthy people. We have the same, like Helena told, all the protected areas has been packed with people during this terrible pandemic. But I just want to say maybe 3 points as a conclusion remarks, which was also by Director Maria mentioned, and also by the Korean colleagues. And I think this issue of embedding also and consider in the broader aspect the climate change, and it has to be taken on board what the effects of climate change will do to both the One Health approach, but also to biodiversity in a broader sense. So we need to have this holistic manner to go beyond just the prevention of zoonotic diseases. And here, of course, that means also that we have to include and collaborate and have the prior informed consent by the indigenous people and local communities. And of course, also include this mental health, well-being, and traditional medicine in these practices. So I think I end here, but I just want to say also to Korea, I didn't know that you have this Green Deal, but you know, I'm coming from EU, so we also have this Green Deal, and it's almost the same. And I think that's also very encouraging that we have countries and regions going in that direction, that we have to make a change and transformative change to this greener environment. And conserving biodiversity means, of course, caring for our health. And there will be a short break now between this, because we have to do some small stretching and taking care of ourselves. I would like to thank you all for taking part in this so far. We will continue with panel 2, so don't leave this room. And please join us in the contact group with Helena today and help us to get the deal done. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna get started again. A little health break.
All right. We are seeing a video made by Nira in collaboration with indigenous artists.
If we pay attention, the signs are everywhere. Plant and soil, rock and river, every being on this earth shares a fundamental reciprocal connection with all others. This guiding principle of indigenous science is at the heart of all our interactions and is especially evident in Earth's most biodiverse places. These thriving ecosystems are energy-rich wellsprings of life, and they are home to more than 370 million indigenous people. For generations, we have shaped and been shaped by these lands and waters, gathering knowledge from their cycles and rhythms, developing ways of being that sustain our communities and our lands. we all have an opportunity for a shared future, born from our indigenous ways of living and knowing. A future in which we continue to fight, continue to tell our stories for future generations. A future based on the interconnectedness between all beings.
A future built on Indigenous guardianship.
We just see a video organized by Niatero in collaboration with indigenous artists, partners, and other indigenous communities to honor all the work that have been done, a lot of indigenous guardians to preserve this environment and also collaborate with all this well-being. So right now we are going to be hearing these sounds from the forest, and now we are going to do that stretching that we promised. So please stand up. And we are going to do some movements inspired, because it's not a former training, but it's some movements inspired in Tai Chi philosophy that connects movements from animals and from another kinds of expressions of nature, and trying to get that energy to reflect body health, body and mental health. So first, just to start, you can move like this, to don't get hard, a little bit, and to the other side. Yeah, all right. Yeah. And okay, I had to choose the easy ones. So first, we are going to do the movement of 4 animals. So the first one, it's the antelope. We are going to do the horns with our hands like this, yes. And one foot, one behind and one in the front. And we are going to do the movement of an antelope, like this. Like this. But this is you have to put your weight to the front, and then when we go back, we are going to do like this. This is the antelope. When you're stressed, you can do this, the antelope. All right. If you are feeling frustrated, or you're feeling that your stomach is hurting or someone because you are stressed or overloaded with all the work at this meeting, you can do also my favorite ones. Then it's the monkey. So the same position of the feet, and then you open your arms. Try to reach some banana in the tree, and then make a gift to a partner, but push with your muscles. And we can do it both sides. Okay, so there's not enough time for the bear and for the tiger, sorry.
Okay, this is working. Thank you very much for the stretching. It was great. I was actually afraid when I got to know about this stretching that we would have broken legs or arms or anything, but I think everyone is fine. Now that we're re-energized, we want to continue with our second panel on synergies for fast-tracking One Health approaches. My name is Lukas Hach. I'm working for the Environment Ministry in Germany, and I am very pleased to be here together with you and introduce our partners. Just bear with me for 2 seconds before we start with the panel, because I want to say a few more words about the Nature for Health Fund. So what is it about? In front of the urgency that we face, and that has now been mentioned by several speakers before, the partners present here, we all felt the need that we need to find a way to fast track One Health implementation. This is why we created the Nature for Health Fund. Our idea is to foster One Health approaches that fully integrate the environmental dimensions to prevent future pandemics and enhance planetary health. Integrating the environmental dimensions looking specifically at biodiversity and climate change. This will involve improving the understanding of the links between health of people, animals, and environment. It will involve supporting the relevant actors and decision makers to make use of this evidence, linking biodiversity, climate, and health in their work, building up the required capacities, providing the necessary tools and instruments. And above all, it will require preventive action that will be financed through the Multi-Partner Trust Fund in 16 to 18 countries and regions. This is what we're aiming for with the funding available now, and we hope for it to grow in the future. The fund is currently at its inception phase, which means that we're building together the different details that need to be cleared before we can start with the operational phase of the fund, which we hope for to start at COP15 and onwards. This is a unique partnership of institutions and actors that are present here. It really represents, and I think this is new, a truly cross-sectoral and integrated approach. And the Multi-Partner Trust Fund will be governed by the consortium partners, and it will be administered by the MPTF office. So with these short words, I'd like to introduce the panelists. We have here colleagues from UNEP, from the CVD Secretariat, UNDP, WHO, OIE on the screen in this hybrid virtual reality, IUCN, and EcoHealth Alliance. And we will start with Doreen Robinson she is head of Biodiversity and Land at UNEP. And I would like to ask Doreen to elaborate on what are some of the challenges encountered from the environment not being integrated into health systems and policies. And I'd like to remind us all that due to time constraints, we have to be brief, 2 minutes max. Thank you.
So this will be speed dating with the Nature for Health Fund. Oh. So I'm going to only make 4 points. First, when you don't have environment at the table, you cannot solve the problem. And I'm going to use the example of climate change. The pathogens, I'll go back to zoonotic disease, the pathogens that are out there and the species that they work through are temperature, they are rainfall, they are humidity sensitive, and they move and react in response to that. So we know that climate change is going to change the map of infectious disease, and we cannot solve the problem of infectious disease if we don't tackle climate change. My second point of why environment needs to be there is we want to avoid unintended consequences of ineffective or inappropriate policy decisions. And there I'll use the example of the 2013-16 Ebola outbreak in West Africa, where some policies, some public health policies that did not involve environmental constituents were ineffective precisely because they didn't have those folks at the table. And in particular, people didn't understand that wildlife trade was the issue. It didn't resonate with their reality. And so bans on wildlife trade were not only ineffective, but it drove the trade in wildlife further underground, which meant it was further away from safe and hygienic practices and the ability to regulate it. My third point is that we get more complete solutions when environment is at the table. We heard from our colleagues from the indigenous people that there are ecological, social, economic, cultural, political risks all associated with health. And if we don't take that into account in a systemic way, we do not
have a complex, the right solution set. And my last point, because I think my date is almost over, is why we've chose to focus on prevention in the fund is we have to take it upstream. We cannot afford another pandemic like COVID. And by taking prevention into account, we can start to build those bridges across the different sectors, build a common language and build a common understanding of how we can work together better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doreen. I will refrain from paraphrasing what you said. I think it speaks to itself, and it's speed dating. So next, I would like to introduce Chadia Wanus, who is One Health Global Coordinator at OIE. And we will hear from her some insights on lessons learned with regards to the human-animal environment interface in managing disease spillover risks. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me well?
Yes. Perfect.
Great. Thank you so much. I would like just to build on what Doreen said about prevention. This is the first lesson we learned, that we cannot react. We always wait until the pandemic happens, and then we try to gather our forces and control it. We need to work on prevention and risk reduction. And to do this, we need to have a whole of society, whole of government approach, where all the relevant sector, all the relevant disciplines, also from the science and the social science, are there on the table to help us address not just the health impact of pandemics or other health threats at the interface, but also the social and the economic and the environmental determinant of health. This is extremely important if we are to take the holistic approach. My second point is about equity. We heard a lot about the issue of medical countermeasures and the lack of equity in distribution of these countermeasures, including vaccines. This will require systemic change. And I want to expand this to say that we need to take into account the needs of indigenous groups, vulnerable groups, refugees and migrants as we plan to develop the local capacity to prevent and control pandemics. So we don't have to rely on global agreement to help us control or prevent these pandemics. My third point, it's about the investment. We talk about lack of financing and funding, but this is extremely true for prevention and for risk reduction. And it's evident that it's cost effective to invest in the preparedness and the prevention. For example, we have one study saying that if you invest only $5 per person per year on prevention, this will be enough to help us advance on our effort to prevent pandemic, instead of spending trillions of dollars on the response and being reactive to crisis. We are hopeful that this trust fund will help us achieve this. Help countries to submit a project that focus on prevention and risk reduction, and help us to ensure that all the relevant sector, including animal health, human health, and the environment, are part of this adventure. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Shadia. Next, speed dating with Christina Romanelli, who is Program Officer for Biodiversity, Climate Change and Health at WHO. We would like to know from you, how does the pandemic treaty integrate the environment, equity, and One Health in its actions on pandemic prevention?
Thank you so much for that trick question, Lucas, because the pandemic treaty is actually an emerging process. Thankfully, Maria, Doreen, and Shadia have already covered all the points I wanted to cover, so it should be possible to do this within 60 seconds. So, but for anyone who's less familiar with the embryonic pandemic treaty, at WHO, we've all been consistently engaged, in a review of the lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic, driven by essentially what is a common desire that we all share here to strengthen global health security. So And as one of the responses to these analyses that have been going on over the past 2 years, some countries, including the EU, have called for an international treaty that'll translate as this emerging pandemic treaty, and will ultimately, aim to provide a more coordinated response to future epidemics and pandemics with a focus on preparedness and response. So we really can't today predict what the final product will be. We've only had one meeting, and the first draft is only going to be presented in 2 years from now. However, we do have today, through this MPTF, a tremendous opportunity, and that opportunity can be summarized in one word, essentially, which is the ongoing theme here, and that is of the focus on prevention. So I think that, to bring it back to the objectives of the MPTF, among the numerous lessons that we have learned from this pandemic is that the growing recognition that we are intimately interconnected with nature. And it will provide, this MPTF will provide us with an opportunity to really get to those root causes, to really get to those common drivers of biodiversity loss, of climate change that Anne was referring to this morning, that Maria was referring to this morning, and could essentially potentially also provide a blueprint of what mechanisms we can establish moving forward to further strengthen the pandemic treaty moving forward. I know we only have 2 minutes, so I would love to elaborate on it, but no, we can't. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Yes, now I'd like to hand over to James Hardcastle, Head for Protected and Conserved Areas at IUCN. James, could you share with us some of the nature-based solutions addressing environmental degradation and biodiversity loss and their benefits to human well-being?
Okay, thanks for the question. 2 minutes. I'll try and pick up. I really have heard so many good things. It's hard not to replicate what others have said. I think nature-based solution, the solution is nature. And I think, when you're talking about health, the health crisis that we've just gone through, that is really, it's in front of us. I'd like to pick up on protected areas, protected and conserved areas as a theme that hasn't necessarily been fully covered. When you're in the negotiations and Target 3, and we have the IPC reports, and there really is a focus on the health of the planet is a minimum of 30% to 50%. That doesn't mean everything in protected areas, but the interconnectivity, the ecosystem integrity is so important. And it's where you have the degradation, it's where you have that rub, that you get the risk, that you get the stress. When things are stressed, then you get the zoonosis, you get the shedding, you get the spreading, and we're in situations where we are. Exactly 2 years ago, we began this this pandemic. 1 year ago, IUCN and the World Commission on Protected Areas produced a special published issue on the state of COVID-19 and its impact on protected and conserved areas. So now, like 1 year after that, and with the support of the German government, Korean government, and many other partners, we're looking at those solutions. We've established a portfolio, a database of successful case studies that we're really interested to advance through the Panorama platform with GIZ, with World Bank, with everybody here as well. So we're starting to get those solutions for how we can really see, back to the protected areas, conserved areas, that these are like the anchors in the landscape. And quite often they're like the arteries where you then have the veins, the capillaries that are going to support your system. There's that interconnectivity. But if you don't have healthy, effective, fair, equitable sites, protected areas in the landscape, then you're going to lose that connectivity. And 2 quick examples. During the pandemic in Cuc Phuong National Park in Vietnam, the wildlife veterinary service in there and the monitoring they had, that was the local magnet for testing, for vaccinations, for research, for monitoring in the national park. Another example in Peru, in the indigenous territory of Amaraqueri, they closed the community. They had everything they need in that territory. They had everything to kind of see this thing out there in the backyard because they are effective stewards of that land. It's theirs, and they were able to take advantage of that. We want to see those examples, replicated. We want to work with countries in the context of bringing people, bringing health into this, you know, this 30%, 50%, the targets, and really to put the who counts into the what counts for biodiversity and health. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, James. I'd like to hand over now to Dr. Catherine Majalaba, Principal Scientist for Health and Policy at EcoHealth Alliance. Catherine, what is required in terms of capacity building at national and international levels to bring in an integrated approach to health systems, incorporating the environment and biodiversity?
Thank you so much, Lucas, and congratulations all for the hard work. You know, many colleagues have pointed out great successes already and commitments, and I think, you know, there are 3 areas where we can really build up capacity in the environment and wildlife sectors to contribute to the scope of One Health outcomes that we really aim for. So healthy humans, healthy animals, and healthy environments. The first is risk monitoring. So surveillance, early warning systems, really working with communities, with eco guards, with animal health workers who are on the ground, who are really the eyes and ears and can get the information to really build out a robust surveillance system, both for wildlife, but also for human health. So this opportunity to add to the surveillance system. And then risk reduction. We heard great examples from James about what communities in protected areas are doing. We can also think about land use planning and how we really can make disease considerations systematically included in the equation when we decide to use a land in a specific way or make protection decisions. The third area is really risk communication. We heard from Doreen about the unintended consequences that can happen when we don't consider biodiversity and ecosystems. And sometimes there's this reaction to target wildlife in the event of an outbreak, and it's really not evidence-based, and we need the environment sector to be at the table and ensuring that the actions, the reactions, and ideally the preventive strategies are taken on to protect biodiversity and humans, and that harmonization of living together. And then just to say, some fantastic work on the ground with One Health coordination platforms at national level, but really subnational level implementation, getting additional sectors at the table, working together, making that routine, and addressing the common drivers of both biodiversity loss, ecosystem degradation, and emerging infectious diseases. So we have tremendous opportunities for capacity strengthening, and really looking forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. This is really just teasers to engage in further dialogues down the road. Now I'd like to hand over to Ms. Midori Paxton, Head of Ecosystems and Biodiversity at UNDP. How does the SDG framework provide opportunities for an integrated One Health approach, bringing in enhanced support for countries to achieve the health-related SDGs?
Thank you, Lucas, and good afternoon, everybody. I think there are lots of connections, of course, between One Health and SDGs. But first of all, I'd like to underline the fact that the causes of zoonotic pandemics and biodiversity loss are the same, essentially, whether it's habitat loss and degradation or overexploitation of wildlife resources. So the solution for preventing and better controlling future pandemics has to be integrated. And the SDG, in this sense, provide a framework for this necessary integration. We know that 50% of 169 SDG targets need nature, power of nature to achieve them. And this holds true for, say, SDG 1, 2, 3, 6, which might be more directly related to health issues. So in our work in 140 countries or so, we really aim to bring about this multiple impact across the SDGs through intervention on nature, whether it's protected area system strengthening or biodiversity mainstreaming in land use planning and sector planning and practices. So keyword here is really the integration and multi-sectoral approach. And in fact, the multi-sectoral approach is the modus operandi for if you're working in the health sector, and also if you're working on the environment sector. So we really try to place emphasis on the whole government approach. I think earlier this point was mentioned as well, and identify specific action areas and policy around individual agency mandates, authorities, and incentives. So this approach really needs to be applied when we are working on the One Health approach. And another must area for integrated work is around finance. What is the cost and potential social and economic returns of actions that cut across the health and environment sectors? So we need to be able to really demonstrate the cost effectiveness of nature-based solutions for health. And we hope to do that through our Nature for Health collaboration we are talking about here. So going back to SDG, and lastly, and One Health is really a critical tool for implementation of our 2030 agenda, and not only to prevent future zoonotic pandemics, but also to help us implement the global biodiversity framework for the sustainable, inclusive, and just human development. So looking forward to really our partnership with partners on this table and in this room going ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Midori. So last, I'm honored to introduce Leticia Seifert, Program Management Officer of Biodiversity and Health at the CBD Secretariat. It was her and the colleagues spearheading also the organization of this event. So thanks also for this. Leticia, how does the Global Action Plan for Biodiversity and Health contribute to the implementation of One Health approaches?
Thanks, Lucas, and it's really a pleasure to be here in person. So the CBD has been really at the forefront of mainstreaming health and biodiversity linkages, with several decisions of the parties recognizing the value of a One Health approach. And so at the last COP14, the Executive Secretary was requested to develop a global action plan for biodiversity and health that is going to be reviewed later today in a contact group. And so what I would like to do here is just highlight the elements that are in this global action plan. So one is on cross-sectoral mainstreaming, which is really looking at how we can foster collaboration amongst ministries and agencies. The other one is on sector-specific mainstreaming, really looking at those sectors which can have an impact in mainstreaming biodiversity inclusive One Health approaches. Then also on education and awareness. The fourth one is on surveillance and monitoring, something that Catherine has particularly mentioned. Also the fifth one on research, and the sixth one on capacity building and funding. And so if you look at the goals of the multi-partner trust fund that Lucas introduced at the beginning, it would focus on the evidence of those linkages, on actions and policies, also on capacity building, knowledge management and advocacy, and also on creating those lasting collaboration and governance structure. So clearly there's a strong complementarity between the aim of the Global Action Plan and the MPTF. And so the Global Action Plan really has the potential of becoming this global leading instruments for mainstreaming biodiversity One Health approaches. So we look forward to working with all the partners here around the table, and also thinking that the project that will come through this MPTF can also help inform and also monitor the implementation of the Global Action Plan. Thank you.
So surprise, we're going over here. Now, if the efficiency of this panel is anything, it bodes very well for the fund. So thank you. But the other point I wanted to make is this is a fund that is starting, and I want to reiterate partnership, partnership, partnership. The doors are open for collaboration, technical, financial, all sorts of collaboration. So please reach out to any of the partners. It is a co-creation process. We all own this issue and we all own the solutions. But with that, we do have a minute to have take any comments or a question or thoughts from the audience, reactions. I can't see online, so I'm not going to go there. But I saw the first hand up over here, so I'm going to go there. And if we're quick, we can maybe take two.
Hello, thank you. So I'm Nitin Ramakrishnan, representing Third World Network. I would like to point out, because we were hearing a lot about One Health approach and preventive health, and how does it, on the other hand, takes the focus away from the response and the therapeutic process as well, because the development of vaccines, medicines, and are all dependent on biodiversity resources, biological and genetical resources. So I would like to know how the trust fund and the Secretariat would ensure there are safeguards to ensure certainty to the benefit sharing, so that it won't preempt the negotiations at WHO or some other place. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we'll take one more question over here while we figure out who's going to answer that.
So my question is to Catherine about the land use, how it is causing health issues. So the land planning, is it the way we use land, or how is it creating health issues? I think you can elaborate about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Christina, you'll take the first one, and I think I'm going to ask Midori if she could react to the second one about land use planning.
Thank you so much for the question. And, I had 4 pages of notes that I would have, that I was really excited to, and speaking points that I was really excited to share with all of you, but had to encapsulate everything in 60 seconds. I think that this MPTF actually fills a very significant gap, and that gap is not only in preparedness and response, but very much in prevention. If you really look at the history of what we've been funding over the years, the overwhelming majority of that funding has been going to response, and only approximately 3%, Maria, you will correct me if I'm wrong, it is 3% of funding has been going to prevention. So the unique nature of this fund is its complementarity with other initiatives that we're carrying out at WHO and with other partners in order to strengthen preparedness and response. It's not meant to substitute, it's meant to fill an existing, very real gap.
I can go quickly, but I think Catherine was also requested to respond. So basically, essentially, if land use planning and management at, say, national or district or local level, if that doesn't consider biodiversity ecosystem issues within that could fragment the natural areas. For example, forest could be fragmented and more room for further fragmentation because people can get into that natural areas. So that, I believe, is causing a potential, it makes it more likely for any zoonotic pathogens within that landscape to sort of spill over and come into more human ecosystem and cause pandemics like this. But I think Catherine might be able to say more scientifically.
So I think we're going to actually leave on that teaser because there's more to come with this fund and there's more to come with you all. With that, we are going to wrap up, but I'm going to invite Inka from the German government to give us a final wrap up stage comments before we leave. And again, please reach out if you want to be a part of this partnership.
Okay. Thanks a lot. No. Just to hear and to speak. Okay, I try this one. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I think this has been such a full event today, and we learned. I learned again quite a lot about pandemics and nature and all the connection. And I think the really important thing is that we have heard so much what we can do, not only how it hits us, but also that there's a lot we can do. So first of all, I would really like to thank you all. Thank you all for coming here and being engaged today. First of all, to the moderators. So Jihun, Marina, and Lucas, thanks a lot for moderating. For the country representatives, I think we have heard that we are already doing a lot and that we got your excellent insights. The speed dating was great, so thanks a lot for this. And so all dear partners and co-organizers for this event, I think this has made me really a good start for the negotiations of the global act tonight, that we will have good debates in SBSTTA following up on this, where I think it will be tough to bring it into the 2 contact groups, because there's so much we can, what can be done and what we can bring in. But so I wish good luck to Helena and Marina to bring this on the way. So I think but I also would like to look a little back. So I think it was 2 years we nearly went all to a lockdown. So it more or less, so in Germany, I think it was 16th of March 2020 when the schools closed and everybody was more or less sent home. So it's more or less, some countries have been hit earlier, others later, but it's more or less the 2 years. And the COVID pandemic has hit all of us very much. But I think we have also learned a lot in these 2 years. So for example, thanks a lot to the IPIS with the scientific, but we also, as we learned today, from partners in the countries, from the panelists, what we can really do. And that is that nature is key. It's really key to bring the connection of nature and health together. And that's why I think it's also like more or less 2 years ago that Lucas and me had the discussion about, okay, it hits us hard, but we need to do something. So we are also very happy that we were able to launch this fund 2 weeks ago at the UNEA, after that what we were able in these 2 years also to try to contribute to act now and to learn. So, and I think as we said, the evidence is clear. The action is clear, as we heard, that there's a lot to do. So I'm really much looking forward to work together with all of you in the context of the fund, but also in the context of the negotiations of the science. And yeah, so thanks a lot for coming, and good luck for all of us and good health. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
That's okay.
Sorry, could I quickly introduce myself?